Kind of. All right, so this is the new Z Flip 5 from Samsung. This is their smaller folding phone again, starting at $1,000 and in nearly the same dimensions as last year's 4. And I remember when it first got announced, we had some well-respected reviewers saying, this changes everything. This is the big upgrade. It's the biggest upgrade ever. And my impression was, they've settled here. Now, to be fair, my video was examining both the Flip 5 and the Fold 5 and looking at how much like the foldables world has evolved in the past year and how much Samsung seems to be sticking to their tried and true form factors. So it just feels like they're refining and settling into their positions. But now after using the Flip 5 much more over the past couple days, I gotta say, I was wrong about this phone. This is actually one of the biggest updates yet. So basically there's 3 main new differences with this phone over the Z Flip 4, which are the chip, the hinge, and then the new outside display. And I'm gonna go in order of importance here actually, because I think it's a pretty clear order. So first of all, they got this new overclocked Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip in here. Great. It's now up to date with the latest flagships. It's the same one that's in the S23 and S23 Ultra. And yeah, it's been a great chip. You know, the phone is super responsive. It can handle multitasking since it's paired with 8 gigs of RAM. It's snappy, apps open quickly, there's no issues here. It can also handle heavy gaming, and I don't even game much on my phone, but it can do it, it's great. The other half of a great chip though is efficiency. So when I saw Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy, I was hoping to see maybe an improvement in overall battery life, but I didn't. And I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised considering the physical battery size is still the same. It's still 3,700 milliamp hours, but it's got way more pixels now to power, which we'll talk about that in a second. So the new chip, fine. But y'all have heard me talk about the hinge though. The hinge being the most important physical part of a folding phone. You can't ace a folding phone without acing the hinge. And this hinge is nice. So Samsung, for the first time, has actually taken parts out of and simplified the hinge of this phone, which has resulted in less moving parts, which is typically a win for long-term durability, but also means a little less volume and a little less thickness around the back of the phone. Shout out to Dave2D for this graphic, basically illustrating the new internal multi-axis folding mechanism that allows the OLED inside to have this slightly gentler, wider radius when it's folded up, which should put less stress through the middle. Honestly, I don't notice a huge difference with the crease. It's still clearly there, like it's one of those things where you turn the screen off or look off axis and it's very obvious, but once you get into the flow of using the phone, it's very easy to forget about. Honestly, the most important difference here with the hinge is actually just that it folds completely flat now. So every Z Flip up to this point has folded shut with just like a little small gap that could get, you know, a little bit of dust, a little bit of sand, a little bit of dirt inside, which is not great when the inside screen is the most delicate part of the phone. So now all these folding phones across the board from everybody, they're all working towards this gapless close. It's still technically not fully dust resistant. I mean, it has an IPX8 rating again. The 8 means it can be splashed, but the X means no official dust resistance yet. But it's also an even more satisfying clap now. And yeah, it's also just, it's slightly more firm. It's a nice sturdy hinge every year, which is hard to appreciate until you go back to the earliest folding phones and see how loose those were. I still personally hardly ever use those like half folded features where you can like prop it up and use the camera like this or like watch videos or whatever. But look, a good hinge is a good hinge. But the biggest change to this phone is clearly the bigger screen on the outside. So let's talk about it. So the Z Flip has gone from this tiny little 1.9 inch slot to a full squared 3.4 inch 720p cover screen called the Flex window. And this is huge. It's a massive improvement. That's way more screen for checking the time or reading notifications, way more screen for framing up pictures with the primary cameras on the outside. It's a huge win for all that stuff. And then also, since it's this huge new screen, they've sort of organized this UI of up to 11 pages of apps that you can flip through, sort of encouraging you to use the outside screen more. You're using a phone without even opening it. So you can fully unlock and then just start swiping over to either quickly view and organize your notifications or move between all these full screen widgets. I have a calendar widget, of course, which is scrollable. You've got a scrollable weather widget. Basically, these are all not even really widgets. They're more like mini apps that have been specifically built for this outside screen to be fully functional and optimized. And then If you're feeling bold, you can also jump into the lab settings and start enabling other non-optimized apps to also work on the outside screen. So there's no question you can do way more with this outside screen than you ever could before on the Flip. The question that's up to you now really is just,